Yeah. Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order for the Trails Team Ad Hoc Committee for Parks and Rec for Onekama Township and the Village of Onekama. We gotta do the pledge of allegiance. Everyone can stand. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think we're on. I see
You've got Chris and Vic on there.
we're recording. Okay, can you see, you can see somewhere Chris and Victor on there?
Yeah, they're
Oh, on the
listed up
side?
there.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
we got, I'll just do a quick attendance.
You don't even need glasses to read it.
Oh, I do.
Cameron?
Oh,
Chris and Vic.
I need glasses. Thank you.
And I don't know if Rick is able to attend today online or not. I don't see him. I just see. If he can, great. If he can't, I know he's got family issues.
Yeah.
Okay. Next thing on the list is, before we get to public comment, I was advised at our last meeting that if something happens to whatever the owl thing, is there somebody that would like to take notes or whatever? Nobody wants to take.
I can take notes. Okay.
I mean, just generally speaking, so if something happens or the owl quits, we've had this problem a couple times now, but we think we have it fixed. Because we were using the same link for both the Trails Team meeting and
The park.
the parks. And there was something to do with, maybe we think it was doing something with that. So we now have, this is a new link. So we're hopefully gonna have an actual like AI meeting notes, but just an outward chance that it's not working. Okay, great.
Yeah, sure.
All right, next thing is public comment. Anyone public comments? People on the owl, any public comment? If we're there and you can hear me, hopefully. We currently do not have anybody here other than our committee members.
Here comes
Right.
Wayne. Wayne's coming.
Oh.
But is he standing?
He's
in for
gonna
somebody?
sit in for Mickey.
Mickey's
Okay,
out.
yeah, Mickey's going, Mickey texted me a while ago, so
Oh,
he's in
good.
South Carolina or
Yeah, you
got new
grandkid.
grandkids.
Yeah.
Okay, seeing no public comment, we'll move on to correspondence. I have none currently. Reports, from committee members. I'll kind of go run through some of this stuff. Michigan Health Endowment Fund, this is something that, Rick attended. And it was an activity, building environments for recent grantees. The next is the MDOT, TAP, and DNR Trust Fund presented individual breakout sessions. They met with TAP and DNR grant funders, trying to fully understand the process relating to our projects. They have reviewed some of our information from Gordy Frazier's project. They are providing us with some insight and advice on how to continue moving forward with various forms of grant funding. Also, the Michigan Health Endowment Fund has hired a thing called Healthy Places in Design. And they're hired as a consultant to work with grantees. So, as a grantee person or an entity that we have a grant, that we get assistance from the Healthy Places and Design.
Is that covered by the endowment fund?
Yeah, the Michigan Health Endowment Fund has hired these healthy places, so they're the ones like. Pay for it. And they have shared some things about, you know, community advantages increasing, and they're kind of giving us like. There's a lot to some of the grants and how you have to, there's one of the things that's on our agenda is this vision statement. And again, I am no expert, and I'm learning as I go too. And there's things that they like to, what's nice is that they give you tips and tricks and like what you need to do for, like, hey, we know that this project is expensive and we're looking for other ways. How are we gonna fund it? If we can do this, what are some potential funding sources? And they say, well, we have a funding source here, but here's some things they would like to see. One of which is a vision statement, which is common. I mean, a lot of my experiences, you know, I worked at a school for almost 30 years. As an administrator, we had vision statements for, you know, different things, our board or PTO had them. So there was a lot of different, and then when you have that, that's something you include on grant applications. It's something that people sign on to. So I'm gonna officially read it, and then I got little spots to sign, people to sign if you want it. And then we're gonna try to get this posted online. And if, like Mickey's not here or whatever, we can just post the blank one, and when we get it all signed or whatever, then we can put the full sign one on there. That they work with the grantees individually. They could be somebody that the Healthy Places and Design, we could potentially have them come to one of our meetings. They said they can work with grantees and committees. They help with recommending secondary funding sources, which is something that will be important for us too, because again, as we talked last meeting about a lot about the cost of the project and how to offset those costs is going to be a kind of an important deal, because it's an expensive project and without multiple grant sources, I mean, you know, much would be possible. So that's something I've been working on. Rick's been to a few meetings. I went to, I don't know if I have this on there. Thought I had it on there, maybe it's in. I went to the Manistee County Community Foundation a week ago. Met briefly with Laura. Rick was there, but just kind of making sure we're on the radar for potential, you know, grant funding. And I don't know how many people are, I know some people here are, but Manistee Community Foundation, just go over real quick. They have a thing called the Minger funds, which are funds that are only for Manistee County, and they are only for recreation activities. So, and the person, this Minger guy who donated the money years ago, he said some real specific guidelines about it's for Manistee County and for recreation purposes only, which means you're not necessarily competing against hundreds or thousands of people as like a federal grant or whatever. And they obviously they have grant cycles, and they have things called mini grants, and they have the regular grant cycle. But it's kind of like we want to make sure we're on their radar, we're talking to them, Rick and I met with them and said, hey, here's some of the information about a project we're looking at, you know, hoping it happens, but part of that hope is that we have funding, so they are pretty engaged. I mean, it's kind of like, in my mind, it's similar to what the township board is doing. At one of our meetings, we went over like the road commission. One of our township officials is going to all the road commission meetings just to make sure we're on their radar. Instead, so they can put a name with a face and know that we're an interested party and we're, you know, want to keep a different line of communication. And so, I mean, I guess I got a good feeling from them. Can't say they're gonna say, well, here's a bunch of money, but at least they know what, you know, what we're about and that we're talking to them.
Yeah. Did
Yeah.
they explain to you what the matching requirements are in the Minger Fund?
Depends on Minger Fund, like, there's mini grants, then there are major grants. They're usually, depending on the grant, a 20% match, but they can, that's something. And the other thing I'm learning about grants, it's interesting that some of the grants, let's say, you are, for example, we were awarded $100,000 grant. There are some granting agencies that, not all of them do it, some of them do it, some of them, so you gotta kind of meet, and they, but here's what they do, they're like, we're offering a workshop and so on, like, oh, we gotta get there. So trying to meet those deadlines and their kind of calendar or schedule is the tricky part, so I've been trying to do that as much as I can, and I know, cause Rick and I are, that's one of our little lanes on that sheet. Some of them will say, oh, you have $100,000 grant from this place. You can use that grant as matching funds. So, that's kind of cool. Some of them you can, some of them you can't. It all depends on what their guidelines are. And then there's some places that fund certain things. Like Joe, we were talking, there's some grants that are, they are strictly for non-motorized. And there's other grants that allow certain things outside of, so trying to explore those funding sources, I think is pretty important, because one of the major, I don't know, last meeting, one of the major things, you know, one, we were talking about the GFA feasibility study has a lot of options. Some of those options great, some of them, like, you know, Vic was talking about, maybe we do them, maybe like the thing that goes down to that Carden Park. I mean, is that a good use of the money? I don't know. I'm not gonna be the guy that says yes or no to it, but I'm just saying that's one of the things to think of. So, exploring those funding sources and getting, you know, to know some of these people and getting, you know, their talking points and finding out things like, oh, they have a group of people that they have hired as consultants, Healthy Places and Designs, and they have consultants that we can tap into. So those are things you may or may not know until you go and meet with them and find out. So that's kind of why I want to report this stuff out to you guys at our meeting, which leads to some other stuff down the agenda a little bit about kind of assigning some tasks. But what we were talking about at the meeting is a lot about funding and trying to come up with money, whether, you know, it's township match or people donating, you know, like, because everybody says, yes, this is a cool project. We kind of like to see something happen. However, the costs are such. Here's some different funding sources, and, you know, we're left with potentially several $100,000 of matching funds. Well, then you start talking to some people who are like, oh, well, you already have this grant. You can use that grant as some matching funds. Okay, which then kind of opens the door over here for a different funding source. So all that is kind of cool and new to me, and I'm just saying I'm learning as I go. And I'll bring the information back to you guys. And I mean, trust me, I am not gonna spend a dime until I got approval, and then because the way I understand it is we are, as an ad hoc committee, we are, the only thing we were a recommending body to the board to say, yes, here's what we recommend, or this is what we think, and then we can start spending some of the money. We have this, currently, we already have a $100,000 grant through that health endowment. And that's stuff for, further investigation, like, looking into, like firms that would be doing
Engineering.
engineering and looking, cause I, like the Gordy Fraser thing is cool. But again, that's more of a 3,000 foot view, and they do provide a lot of information. But there's also other things that the engineering firms will do and do core samples and see if it's, again, which the prices on things could drastically change because they look at something and say, oh, you guys said you wanted to put the trail here. It's a swamp or so, it's wet. So those are things, there's a lot of moving parts. So just painstakingly going through this stuff and in my mind, as long as we keep on it, I mean, as far as I know, our timeline's fine. We're doing well.
But the township board has approved taking the grant.
The 100, yeah, oh yeah, yes, the 100,000 one. Is that what you're
Yes.
talking- Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely, yep, totally. I think the grants, it's actually been delivered, or the funding has been delivered to the township, so it's, I believe it's here. And yeah,
As
okay.
far as I know.
As far as I know, the funds have been delivered to the township, so,
Can I just make one comment just to correct something you said?
yeah,
The Minger Fund requires a 10% match,
it's,
not a
okay,
20.
not a 20, okay.
I mean, it's good if you do more when you can, but
Yeah.
it only requires 10%.
Okay,
And also it's important to recognize at this time that the health endowment grant, there are no strings attached to that grant. We can spend that $100,000 and say, whoa, we can't do this. Goodbye.
yes, and that has taken me a while to get beaten into my head.
Because
Because
the
I'm
charge from the board
right,
was not to spend a dime till we had feasible project.
well,
Cindy?
Not sure that's how it was worded.
yeah. There might be
That's
some.
the planning
grant, so it's for planning.
And that's part of the, so that grant is. And that's that again, but I was beating into my head because I'm used to it, okay, you have to match X amount of dollars. That grant is ours, we do not match any money to it, it's ours, and it, correct. You said, it is a planning grant to help us plan for, as we go forward. As opposed to trying to use township money or whatever combination of village, township, however it ferrets out. We have a bank account of 100,000 to move forward in planning through this process. So, yeah, the closer we get on what exactly we want to do, those are good steps to take. But again, that's gonna take time. And here we are kind of in the weeds, find out, here's another agency that's, the Michigan Health Endowment Fund has hired some consultants. These people are saying, well, yeah, if you already have that grant, you can potentially get some more money from these guys, and they don't require a match. Because you can use that as your match, like, woo. Okay, so it's kind of, in a way, it's a little more promising because it's easy to get a little discouraged sometimes on costs. But in my mind, I'm trying not to do that, and it's something that's so ingrained in me because if you, I don't know, you work for a school district, the answer is, we don't have any money for anything. So if you want to do it, go find the money. Don't ask us for any. So that's my logic going into this. And I'm finding that there's people out there that are, one, that have money to give out grants, and two, that are there to help you to figure it out, which is really nice. So I beat that to death. Next thing on the list is this vision statement. And I'll just, if you guys want, should I read it to everybody?
Yeah, just read it out.
Okay, it's something that they like to see and require, so. A vision statement for improving community health and enriching lives. Aligned with the values and practices endorsed by the Michigan Health Endowment Fund. They're giving us money. So we want to be nice. Our team is dedicated to a collaborative process in developing the community trail. This trail will become a vital will become vital for promoting health and well-being by providing a space for healthy activity, social engagement, and environmental stewardship. We will ensure the process remains responsive to our communities involving needs and goals by drawing from proven methods and lessons learned from similar successful partnerships. This commitment reflects our shared responsibility to create a sustainable, accessible, and inclusive trail system benefiting future generations. Through thoughtful planning, community involvement, ongoing dialogue, we will ensure the trail remains a positive force, enhancing the quality of life and health for all residents of the Onekama, village of Onekama, and Onekama Township. Our collective dedication ensures a structured, accountable approach, reinforcing the trail's continuing role in improving the quality of life, fostering constructive dialogue, and encouraging a collaborative problem-solving period, including problem-solving. So, Dwayne, you're already looking at me like, you know, I didn't write that. So, I mean, it's what we're, I mean, it's a very nice way to try to convey what we're hoping for.
Oh, mission statement is usually much.
Yeah, vision's usually really short, which is like, this is what we,
Yeah.
what it look like. Mission is how we're gonna get there, which is usually a bit longer, but. I mean, I don't disagree with anything that was in there.
Okay, but it potentially, you think shorten it a little?
It should be down to 1 or 2 sentences
Usually,
for an effective mission statement.
well, vision, this is what the vision statement,
Vision
which is a
statement.
little bit different. I don't get.
Well, it does say vision state, the vision for our community trail.
So like a few things that might have been redundant, I think. Adjusting. Somebody,
What will become of it once you?
Well, mainly what we want to do is be able to use something like this as, one, we're gonna, like, everybody that's on the ad hoc committee, trails team, would sign it. There's a spot for signatures in the back, and then, we would post it online, as that would be part of our.
That's what I'm saying, is that it's saying some things are going to take place in that vision statement, and I'm wondering how they plan to actually actuate it. Particularly, if you're talking about I'm sure that it remains responsive. I would like to know then by what methods you think this Trails Committee is going to remain responsive. And by what method we are going to be,
I didn't even know where that was coming from.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna keep that up. And by what method are we going to,
Well, I think that would make it longer, I don't know.
no, I'm saying that if you have a mission statement, I think that behind that mission statement, there's gonna be goals and objectives. That's all,
Okay.
usually. So where do we go? Is this just a place where we have it for being on the applications, or is this?
Yeah, this is something we're gonna use for our application process for
Okay,
different
so,
funding sources, and some of them require mission statements or vision statements, and currently we just like.
I'm sure other people can speak better
Yeah.
than me, but I'm thinking.
I mean, that-
we have a mission
I'm just saying this is
statement,
what we
have
came up
goals
with,
objectives
and if it doesn't suit our
behind it,
needs,
right?
then we can do something different. If anyone has strong feeling, I mean, trust me, it's a nice thing to have or say, and then follow along and try to do exactly what we're saying. Post it online for people to see and say, okay, these guys are, you know, working with the community and trying to make, you know, something that's healthy and good for people and
It's
Onekama.
a feel-good statement.
It
I get
is.
that, but it should also have meat behind it, and I, for one, would hesitate to sign something
Okay.
if I didn't think we were actually going to do those things.
Okay.
I might be the troublemaker and
No, that's
fire
good.
me.
No, it can be quite broad. I mean, it doesn't have to be specific about exactly what the trail will eventually look like, but it can just say, we want to create a healthy environment for
Yeah,
safe.
this is a very broad statement. I mean, it's,
Cindy, could I share as an example what the PLA did for a vision statement? Because I think it says a lot of things, but if you put that up on a website, people are gonna read it, get lost in it.
sure.
And that's where, you know, it should be a short one. Would you have any objection to that, Cindy?
It's technically not approved, but
Huh?
it's technically not approved, but,
As an example, okay, never mind.
I mean, go ahead, I don't,
I mean, here's the thing, we don't have to adopt, I mean, this is just a discussion thing. I'm thinking. Just for the purposes of looking for funding, I'm like, okay, let's get this done. But, we don't have to, and if we wanna come up with something shorter or more concise. Fine by me, but just something that we can use, and again, I would like to get it on the website and post it. Have people agree to it or sign it or whatever, and then, when, I think it's something. Like you said, people are gonna go on the website and read it and get lost. I don't, I mean, maybe they do, but technically, yes, it's there, but. One of the more pertinent reasons to have it is when you're submitting. To get grant money from a specific place that requires something like this, they're the ones that are gonna, oh, wow.
Can you read the first two sentences?
Sure. A vision for improving community health and enriching lives.
Okay, I think you could almost stop there. That's your vision. Beneath that, you're gonna have how you're gonna accomplish all these things. But you could add to it by establishing a community-wide trail system, but the more concise it is, it gives just,
Well, that's
this is our
nebulous.
vision, not the one you've got there goes into a rambling detail.
Well, I mean, it's trying to capture. So they give you like talking or like, I don't know.
Talking
Suggestions to
points.
do it, so the more I was thinking, the more you include, the fancier it's gonna sound.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, we have a
You're
non,
probably a professional at these things.
no, we have a nonprofit, my wife and I started, in memory of our son.
Okay,
And our mission is to improve outcomes and experiences of infants and their parents in the neonatal intensive care unit, period. And then our vision is to create a healthier environment in the NICU by educating parents, blah, 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 providing resources, creating rooms, providing resources for end of life care. So it fits, you know, this pretty short, you know.
Yeah.
so-
okay.
So something, I think that people don't like to read a whole lot of stuff. They're gonna read a couple sentences. And generally, I think granting agencies are gonna look for something more concise.
Okay.
Focused.
Well, I wanna do whatever.
I think we
People-
should shorten it too.
Okay.
We just gotta think about, it doesn't really matter so much what we think, we just want it to be what the granting agencies are looking for. you know?
Yes,
That's.
And they want to see a focus, I think.
whatever they,
can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
Just because I've facilitated a lot of strategic planning,
okay.
a vision should be your aspiration.
Mhm.
In other words, what you see.
Okay, I'm gonna write this down.
No, but I mean, it's what like is the ideal state that you hope to get to. And it should also be what I'll call an elevator speech, so that if somebody said, what's your vision? It should be short enough that you can rattle it off,
Okay,
okay? Your mission statement should be, what are you doing?
How are you gonna get there?
Yeah.
How are you gonna achieve
What are you
that vision?
doing?
Yeah,
Yep. I mean,
okay.
again, I can't rattle it off as well as I should, but for instance.
Well, this is gonna be impossible to rattle off. I mean, this is just something
Yeah,
that, this
it
was,
should be pretty short and sweet.
yeah. But again, this was mainly like, A, what are the grant agencies gonna like to hear? I mean, to be honest.
can I offer a suggestion?
Sure.
Why don't you put that out to all the team members
Yeah,
and have everybody try to come up with a concise statement? You know, and then from that,
or even better, if somebody wants to work on it
well, I
and
think
revise it.
everybody give their input or their idea on what they think it should be. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I mean,
That's short and sweet.
to create a connected network of trails for use by pedestrians and cyclists that fosters a healthy community. Just something like that.
Yeah,
Boom.
That's
just,
good.
you
I
know.
like that.
I don't know, and that might be a vision, which is what we want to see. We want to see that healthy network, that people using it, but.
and all they're asking for is a vision statement.
Yeah, there's something that, I don't know, I'm trying to come up with ways to make sure, I mean, for lack of a better term, qualify to get in on certain grant opportunities. And if they're like, well, what's your vision statement? What's, you know, what your vision and mission statement? I haven't, you know, asked that yet, but again, I'm learning as I go too. So I, you know, but I agree, probably the more concise and if people can actually remember it, that's probably a good thing too. So, yeah, I mean, trust me, I'm not married to this thing at all. I mean, but if people are willing to look at it and
Well, I think what
Digest
Vic
it.
said is fine. We don't need to look at it. And we just.
Mark.
Oh,
Vic's the good looking one.
I'm
I'm Mark.
oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You're the second most good looking one.
Mark, can you put that out in an email, share it with everybody?
Sure, I'll send it around.
All right,
I think I'm
cool. All right,
I think that's,
Yeah.
yeah, get it short and sweet.
short and sweet.
And then do we meet again just to sign it or?
Well, and, I mean, I don't know if the signing part is so, I mean, at some point, yes, we should do it, but as long as it's something that, like, if everyone looks at it and says, cool, then we can post it on our
And we
website.
can do that by email.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying,
You know,
everybody.
Mark puts it out, ask for
Right.
variations,
Or
come up with
additions,
something, and then
Just send it- just
everybody
put it in your email.
email.
Perfect, okay. And then look at it, see what we think, and then,
Somebody sign?
Hey, Matt, it's
Hello?
Vic.
oh, okay, yeah,
So I was asked to put something out on the website. It is
Okay.
out there. It is out there already on the
Okay.
on the website. It is titled as a mission statement, but the opening line is a vision. So it's playing the role of both. And I was asked to put it up. I'm thinking I should take this down, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Let us, do our revisions or whatever, and,
Okay, just wanted to clarify. I'll pull it
Yeah.
off.
okay. And then everybody can look at it and decide, add, subtract, put in whatever comment. And then maybe, like at our next meeting, if everyone thinks it sounds pretty good, we'll do another signature page and we can sign it and then post that piece that's signed on.
Okay,
Sound good?
yeah, sounds like a plan.
Yep.
And then basically that's, it looks to align our projects and groups and focus strategies, focusing on public health, values to the community, because those are all things that, again, the grant funders like to see. So sooner. We talked about the Manistee County Community Foundation a little bit. I went there with Rick last week, just making sure we're on the radar for funding. All right, feasibility study review. I have asked Gordy Frazier to either be here or available on Zoom for sure for our April meeting for our entire team. And trying to get everybody here. I know I talked to Mickey over text. A week ago, he said he'd be available by the next meeting in April.
What is the date, man?
Probably the same, whatever the last Friday of April.
25th of April.
Yeah, 25th of April.
I'll be out of town, but
Okay, I mean, we don't have to, I mean, if we do it,
Can we meet sooner or are we gonna?
Are there provisions for voting by email or in township business?
electronic.
Yeah, it depends, I don't know what the bylaws are, so it would be,
I think it was determined because we're not like an official
We're advisory,
committee.
right?
Yeah,
We could
our
do that.
voting would be like, if we're gonna finally come to a conclusion of, okay, this is what we like to see for A, B, C trail parks, and we wanna vote to recommend that to the board, to the township. And then once we do that as a committee, we vote, that thing passes, that goes on to the township board. We're just sort of like a recommending body.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know if you'll get there, but it seems like recommending body would be very nice, if it was a unanimous thought,
yeah, I mean, that'd be cool.
recommendation was made. Can't always get there, but
The attempt should be made.
yeah, I mean, they'd have a 3-2
Right.
recommendation.
Well, and that would go along with our vision statement. That's good for the community and people are gonna like it. But if you got half, or not half, but 35% of the people that are like, well, like, the rest of people who like it, that's the one.
Let me know if you've changed the date. from that
Okay,
day.
tell me, I want to go back to the last page here. What times would you be around? I
I
know
don't,
Mickey's gonna be here. He told me maybe by I am gone April 12th. I'll be back either the 21st or the 22nd. But I would be here in time for the 25th. But if you're not here on the 25th, we could do it.
I'm available, the 4th, the 11th, if we're looking at a Friday.
Oh, you're only here on.
I don't vote.
Well, still,
I'm just a relay person.
but it's,
I'm not.
well, you'd be able to be maybe a observer.
Probably.
So the only one that would be missing on the 25th would be you. Could you log in?
I think I fly that day. So I don't know, I don't have.
It might be best just to stick with the 25th. I think everybody's got that tentatively on their calendar.
Yeah. Well, we won't put anything written in stone until we can try to get you.
And Wayne can sit in for it.
I just assumed
When's
change
the
the
village
date,
substitute?
because I
Yeah.
am flying that day, I know
Right,
for a
right.
fact.
Yeah, okay,
So if I'd like to have a vote.
yeah, and whether we get to hopefully vote on something.
So there's no reason you can't change the date.
Right, I'm just saying if we maybe.
When's Mickey back?
I thought he said this sometime after the first week of April, but it's.
Okay.
I think that's what he.
But we're just talking about a vote on a vision statement, right?
Right,
We could probably do that on.
you could do
We
that
could do
without
that with
me.
email.
I would hope so, yeah.
I mean, it's not really a vote.
But I thought you said you were in April, you're having
Well,
Gordy Fraser, so.
Yeah, we're gonna try to have, I have been trying to get Gordy Frazier like nailed down to, I mean, I get it, they're busy and we're, whatever. But nailing them down to a specific date in April for a meeting that they can either for sure monitor on Zoom or somebody show up. I would like to get them that date sooner than later,
Right.
farther out, like I don't wanna tell them like the 5th, cause they're gonna look at me like I'm crazy.
Yeah,
but,
don't worry about me then. I'm gonna
But
hear
if I mean, if,
that.
The further
are you
you're
back?
out alerting them, the
Oh, yeah,
better
I've already-
chance we will have getting them.
I already, that's.
That's the date you need.
I just said at the end of April, I said typically our meetings are the last Friday. Is that a time you'd be available? We can be flexible, blah, 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 like trying to.
Yeah, go for it. I'll just-
But I don't wanna exclude you.
No, I'll get a report from somebody else when I get back.
Can't see Gordy Frazier having much to do with your vision or mission statements.
No, they don't.
I mean, you could do.
We already paid them, so.
Right.
But we want them to answer some questions.
Yeah, that's why we want them, right, available.
Okay.
Okay.
So on the feasibility study, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, the last meeting, and Vic was trying to help us, is to begin to hammer out what does a project look like? What is a feasible project? Gordy Fraser's feasibility study recommended that we start with initially looking at, and it was on page 36, for the primary phase of their investigation or consideration, they had 4 segments that they recommended we look at. And I think that's one place to start is, with those 4 segments, start to hammer it out.
Yeah.
And if those don't work, what other segments? And we talked about last time, including consideration after Mark brought up, going through the village should focus on pedestrian.
Yeah.
The citizen wellness.
Well, we should focus on both, but
Yeah.
it may be a different kind of facility
Yeah.
in the village than outside especially for bikes.
And that would be great to have, because again, I mean, you had some really valuable input too, over the owl thing and talking about, again, it might be just the Matt thing that I gotta get in my head, that what Gordy Fraser gave us is a guideline. It's not the Bible. You know what I mean?
No, I agree.
And that's why there can be some variations to that. And I mean, kind of like Vic was saying, if we come up as a group that says, hey, the money that's gonna take to go from whatever M22 down to Carden Park on a bike trail. That, I mean, yeah, it's a township trail. However, if we can save a few dollars, I just, in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't know how popular that would be. I mean, I know a lot of people are going down to the recycling thing, but.
So if you're starting with that section, because they really start at M22 and John Street. To me, there's no trailhead, there's no parking.
Right.
You're starting in the middle of nowhere. Where are people supposed to park to pick it up there? It would seem like the segment from Carden Park to John Street, if you're gonna have a real trail, you've got a small trailhead, parking available that's been developed there, and it joins up at M22 and.
Yeah, he's talking about Carden Park. right?
Yeah, yeah,
There's parking in Carden Park?
a little bit.
No parking in
There-
Carden Park.
I don't believe there is parking.
There's parking at Eagle View or Feldeck.
But isn't it at Eagle View? Doesn't that family have restrictions that's not to be used for parking?
That's Feldeck, but
Or-
no, that's not true.
No.
The M20, the road commission has, where the parking is, to my knowledge, when it was surveyed, that's still in the road right away.
Yeah, and the thing about there's a restriction is for if you're gonna do stuff like, we're making like adding gravel or a picnic table or not because you can
The
pull up.
restriction is it has to be an open space.
Okay,
Yeah.
so my
So there's a
question is,
parking area.
Carden
if you
Park, I
start-
park there though.
if
so I
you
don't-
start at John and M22, where do you park?
I didn't hear you again.
If you start looking at the phase that we're supposed to start with, that Gordy recommended. Segment B starts at M22 and John Street and goes to 8 Mile. Where are you parking? Where are people parking to start using the trail there?
Yeah, and that's why we can use and we can say, hey, we would like it to start over by Welbeck. Because there's parking.
Yeah, it seems like that stretch to Carden Park would be a pretty low priority because it's
Yeah.
already very safe.
Yeah,
It's
there's
a
no,
wide dirt road where cars are naturally gonna go slower because it's a dirt road, a little uneven. There's traffic going to the recycling bins, but it's not a kind of place you would worry about walking along.
But we don't know that those are gonna be there forever.
Well, if they're not there, that's even less.
that's,
traffic.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
even, then there's only one car a day going down there.
Yeah.
So, but those are good questions for GFA, and then that, again, that potentially would shave off some of the price. And if there are any concerns about Feldack and parking there and whatever, 5, 6 cars or whatever, we would make sure we could check with them, but it's my understanding, and Cindy, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, because we've talked in a couple meetings about, we gotta make sure if we're gonna add maybe that was big. We're gonna add a wheelchair accessible picnic table to Feldack Park. that we would check with them to make sure that was something. Has nothing to do with parking. There is a parking area.
I
What
think
was
that was
appro-
part of our last meeting approving the Parks and Rec budget items.
Yeah, okay.
I think Vic was gonna say something.
Yeah, what the budget, as presented was that we were gonna formalize the parking area at Feldeck, adding some clear perimeters to the parking area, deal with the drainage, and then switch that table out to North Point and move a ADA table there. And of course, all this would be approached to the Feldeck family for their approval.
And so I don't see your, like you're saying, hey, you can't park there.
Well,
You,
no.
you can park there, it's
Okay,
fine.
but if you start at Feldeck Park,
Then we eliminate some costs, yeah.
then you eliminate that stretch coming from John and you eliminate the need to cross M22 because you're already on the lakeside. It saves money on that stretch,
Yeah.
a crossing.
Yep.
There because you'd be starting
We
already.
got a
But
park.
is that in the village or the township then?
Belknap is a town.
It's a township park. so-
Okay,
There's really, is there any right of way in front of the blue slipper? I mean, it's right up to the roadway, isn't it?
Well, that's another question. Mickey and I measured where there's a pinch point in front of the blue slipper. Cause the way I read this is the path would be 10 foot wide with a 3 foot buffer between the roadway or the curb and the pathway. And at the blue slipper, you're inside of their front step. And coming around, their plan is to take their property there on the outside, pull everything up, they're gonna put brick pavers all down there. And their concern was coming around that curve, are we gonna be cutting into their entertainment outside eating area?
Well, and here's what I can tell you, the only place, as far as I know, the only place that we can go with this trail is on what Gordy, well, the one stipulation is we gotta use the road. We can't be going into people's private property. So we wouldn't be infringing on, or, I mean, we wouldn't be infringing on like the blue slippers yard or nothing, but I mean, we'd have to do something that's within the road right away. Where that road right away is, that's, and those are, well, that would be something that potentially, like, when as we get through this agenda, just like tasks and stuff and assigning some things. Just where would that be? And right now it's like, I don't know.
Well, supposedly the
so-
right of way is
Well, we
33
can't-
feet off the center.
Right, but we can't go with supposedly, we're gonna probably end up having, these are some of the things that like an engineering firm would do. They would come out and figure exactly out and spray some line there for us, and we're like, okay, now we know exactly where it's at. So then we know where the pinch points are, and that is a potential problem area. So that's again, a planning grant, that would be an example of what we may have to use a little bit of money for. I mean, that's just something that could come up. So right now, you just assume that you come around the corner, that everything, I mean, that's been there forever. Where the exact location is, they would be able to tell you from a GPS thing and measure it with their equipment. This is where you could have the end of your bike path.
So there are 3 other major pinch points.
There's a bunch of them, yes.
Easy Mart, it's just over 9 feet from the curb to the building. The village offices, it's 11.5 feet. When you come around, the curve, there's a little triplex before the open lot where the Harbor Tavern was it? Harbor Bar. There's a triplex there that used to be yellow, now it's gray. That's down to about 8.5 feet to their building.
Right.
So there are multiple pinch points there.
that's what the engineering firm will tell us.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, if there's other things in the planning process that we need to do, like I'm trying to think of who would, like, I think is it Spicer Group or something like that, that they come out and they do those things. That's a name of a company I can think of off the top of my
Yeah.
head that's kind of around here. They come out and they're like, yes, because I mean, we shouldn't be the people out there with the measures. I mean, we can do it, but honestly, we're not gonna get accurate information unless we get a real engineering person that says, here's where you gotta go. And that's kind of where we're at this point to move things forward. So they're gonna charge us something. So it's nice to have a little pot of money that we can use to do those things. Because people might say, hey, we got a pinch point here. How far can we go? Everybody says, well, probably about here, you know, property owners for sure are gonna wanna know that. Same thing with the blue slipper. And we don't wanna get it, I mean, we're doing this to try to make a healthy, nice community trail that people all like. We don't wanna start ticking people off like the blue slipper saying, well, we're taking our bike path and we're going through where you're gonna have your bar at outside. You know, it's just not gonna happen. So those are things we gotta address.
No, just that there are other things besides a separated trail in the village that can be done to.
Yeah.
Work on bump outs where you know, where you might take one parking space on either side and bump out into the lane and maybe have a small. I'm thinking of particularly the area that's very wide where cars get moving a little bit by the laundromat. That area, that part of the road.
Yeah.
If you were proposing crosswalks, which I think would be a nice idea, but you want to shorten that crosswalk distance by having a bump out on either side to shorten that distance and maybe even having a refuge in the middle.
Those
for
things
pedestrians.
would
And
help slow the traffic.
That's right. That's the purpose. It's not only to make it safe for pedestrians to get across, but it also is a physical thing that gets in
You
people's
see it,
heads and they
yeah.
see it and they slow down a little bit, whether they want to or not.
Right.
It's those kind of things.
Yeah, and those are great ideas.
You know, paint, we use, in Athens, green thermoplastic paint, which is very visible and it lasts for years. And that indicates to everybody in town, this is a pedestrian or bike place. I need to be looking for people.
Yeah.
But again, things like that,
Yeah.
that are separate from a path. And the path in the village, I agree, is gonna be tough to do,
It's tricky.
for bikes in the village, given all the property owners, legitimate,
They-
concerns
yes.
about that.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Another question aesthetically for the village is, and I think Chris Forth, I've heard him raise this question. He's on, but I don't know if he'll speak. Is it aesthetically pleasing for the village to have a 10-foot wide asphalt path rather than concrete going through the village?
Well, all I can say is I know there's, just from, when the guy from the road commission was here, talking about the cost difference between asphalt and concrete, it's like night and day.
No, I understand.
I'm just saying that.
Because I priced it in the wellness path. Okay, but it's what is aesthetically pleasing for the village and the village residents to have. And then the other
Well, and over
question,
time, what lasts as well. I mean, I think that
the what?
not only there's the initial construction, but also how long will it last,
Right,
that kind of thing. So I think concrete's more expensive is what you're saying.
concrete's more expensive. It's also more expensive to replace, but asphalt or concrete, you're gonna need replacements. The big question we did last month was if it has to be a non-motorized trail, would MDOT help fund sections that were motorized? Because you can't make the alleyway non-motorized. We'd like to see the alleyways improved, but you can't shut off vehicle
Didn't we kind of talk
traffic.
about that? You were saying that there's not enough room in those alleys to be put in the path for the garbage truck and all that. I think that's what you were saying. I'm trying to remember.
They average 14 feet wide.
Personally, my thought is it could easily be cars, small trucks. What needs to be not there is semis and garbage trucks because they just beat it up. We can't keep it maintained just because of the weight factor. I mean, to support that kind of traffic, you need to basically have a serious road.
Road, yeah.
And as far as the concrete asphalt, you need to watch whether you need to put in gravel before your asphalt because there's a difference.
Yeah,
I mean, every time I've checked asphalt to concrete, I've always been able to do concrete for less money. Just because of the additional gravel required to support the asphalt. But that's just me, that's on a smaller scale.
Right, not a
Right.
milestone deal.
Hey, Matt.
The alleys,
Yeah,
Hey, this is Chris. Can I
Yeah.
chime in on this thing now that
Sure, yeah,
Joe's
yeah.
brought it up? Um, you know, there's a reason why you don't see these 10-foot wide multi-use asphalt paths down Main Street, USA, because a lot of these communities were developed and built a century or more ago. So they weren't designed for something this wide running down Main Street.
Right.
Right.
And these trails are great. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
In my past working life, we built a lot of them, and they were widely or hugely popular, but they're best suited for open areas, rails to trails, following power lines, where you have more space to build them. Now,
Right.
I took a deep dive into the what is it? It's the Traverse City, not the Traverse City.
Traverse
The
area.
trail that runs from Petoskey to Harbor Springs.
Tart, yeah.
The tart.
No. It's the Little Traverse Trailway. Runs from Charlevoix all the way up to Harbor Springs. And there you have that trail transitions back and forth between asphalt and concrete. It uses sidewalks. It uses widened concrete sidewalks. It uses the asphalt path is really where you have a much more land area to actually to
Yeah,
build.
kind of like where, like on the south side of the lake or whatever, you got kind of a wide open space with.
Yeah.
From the edge of the
Yeah.
village to Portage Point
Yeah.
Road, from the edge of the village to.
Because there's really nothing there.
Crescent Beach Road, those are, would make more sense for that.
Zero pinchy points.
Right.
Yeah, and I haven't ridden it. I've ridden it, the section, a part of that section from Charlevoix to Petoskey, but it does transition back and forth, and wheel traffic just transitions back out onto the roadway. And Main Street's 30 miles an hour. And so it should be fairly safe for wheel traffic. If this is the way the village wants to go, is maybe to transition the wheel traffic back onto the road and keep pedestrian traffic back on perhaps a widened sidewalk along one side of Main Street.
That makes a lot of sense.
Just my thoughts, just my opinions.
Yeah. And I do think there's a lot of discussion about the alleyway. I mean, I think in practice, I'm not sure how many people would do that or use that. I certainly would just, I'm comfortable. Most
Staying
people
on
are
road.
comfortable staying on the road. Why take a detour that's not as pleasant, not as, visually interesting? I would probably just stay on the road, honestly.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, potentially you might have some more local people doing that, but people from out of town that come on vacation,
Mhm.
then we're taking people away from the downtown businesses and stuff. But I'm just thinking, if I show up here I live in Grand Rapids, and I'm not coming for a weekend. Probably not gonna, unless you got little kids or something, you're gonna be on the alley, but you're gonna stick to the main path, you're not gonna go off on some alley.
The wellness path used a widened sidewalk.
And again, there are ways to make it safer for cyclists within the village without necessarily having a separated path, but just
So,
doing
Mark-
additional things to slow traffic down.
Okay.
That would be a question for MDOT. In talking with MDOT, when we originally proposed the wellness path, we proposed a narrower parking lane down to 8 foot and ending up with a 4 foot wide marked park lane or bike lane.
Yeah,
And they said they wouldn't do that.
Yeah, the trouble is with a bike lane next to parking, you get
Doors
doored,
open.
you get doored. And the people just they're just not used to it. My sister lost a tooth in London from getting doored by a delivery driver, opened the door, she went right into it.
So were you suggesting that coming through the village,
It could be kind of.
riders ride as it is
Sharrows
now?
treatment, kind of a Sharrows, share the road.
Yeah.
These are with the little
With
bike
signs.
arrows. But signage, but also physical things to create the impression or the reality of a somewhat narrower road. So
I think,
the narrower the road is, the slower people go. That's a basic, principle.
I think in all of our experiences, we were just down in Greenville, South Carolina. And they've got,
Swamp Rabbit.
yeah, well, forget the swamp rabbit, I mean, that's genius. But they've got 3.5 foot bike lanes all through the city.
Yeah,
That's great. That's not what we're dealing with out here. We don't have the option of putting 3.5, 4 foot bike lanes on a state highway.
Right,
Heidi will not allow it.
Yeah, because they have jurisdiction over it.
Yeah.
yes.
But the one thing I know they did say, to your point, is without any kind of super traffic study or a bunch of rigmarole and no cost, I believe to us, is they will shrink the lanes by a foot on each side.
Yeah, 11 foot driving lanes.
Yeah, because currently they're
12.
12, so we can potentially gain for really little or nothing. A foot on each side of the road, which is, I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but at some point, if you got 3 feet and all of a sudden now you got 4 or.
Well,
you
in
know,
the
whatever.
wellness path, we recommended that. A
Well-
narrower driving lane,
And it
narrower
also
parking
slows
lane,
traffic.
but Heidi had the problem with,
Well, bike lanes are not appropriate when people are going 60 miles an hour. Okay, there's no paint in the world that's strong enough to keep me from getting
No, no,
hit by a
and I-
60-mile-an-hour car.
an
If it's less than
occasional
30
bump
miles an hour.
out to slow traffic,
Well, I'm
anything
talking about,
visually.
maybe talking about different areas. I'm talking about from Portage Point Road entrance to the village limit, that stretch, particularly the more open stretch. Cars are going pretty fast there. It gets up to 50, it goes down to 45 at the turn, but then it goes back up to 55
Yeah.
before going to 45 and then 30.
Wasn't
And
there a
so,
discussion last meeting about requesting, a whole discussion about requesting
Yeah.
reductions?
And Mickey was checking into that.
Never gonna happen. You know what it takes to get a reduction in speed? It takes a traffic study by the Michigan State Police,
Well,
who will come out here in October when there's nobody here, and they'll say,
do they still use the 85% rule? or what it's
Yeah.
called?
I think they're, but, because Mickey was taught, he was here at the last meeting.
Yep.
And to your point, it was possible, because he has done a lot of research on that, and there's some new rules about that, and especially if it's connected to a municipality like the village.
They're giving more leeway to local municipalities to say, here's what's
Yeah.
appropriate for our
Yes.
community.
And the community has more say-so than they used to have. So I know he was looking into that. He can't be here, obviously, but he had done, previously, just before the trails was even thought of, he was looking into that issue based on the location of where he lives. And he found out some pretty interesting information about the community has now, more recently, more say in that speed limit, especially if it's, I don't know if contiguous is the right word, but if it touches a lower speed traffic entity like the village of Onekama, which it does. So those are two things to kind of keep in mind, that potentially the traffic could be slowed out to the end of the village boundary, what I can't.
Or
think
even
of
so it
the
doesn't
name.
go up to 55 at that point. which is
Right,
just
and it's
nuts.
like,
It goes up to 55 for like a quarter mile.
yeah, and there's a road, I can't think of the name of the road, whatever it is, drawing a blank.
Prospect.
What's that?
Prospect.
Prospect, yes.
Yeah.
At the very last one at the edge of the village, that potentially that could get rezoned as a reduced.
And if you put in, like Mark said, a barrier or an island, if it was adjacent to a crossing place, that would visually help slow down traffic a little bit. And that stretch from Prospect to Portage Point Drive, I ride my bike to Langland Park,
Mhm.
and I hit Prospect, I'm looking over my shoulder for clear traffic both ways
Mhm.
and cutting over as soon as I can, because that is a real, going out of town, they accelerate, coming down the hill, they haven't slowed down.
Right, but potentially there's yes.
Did anyone talk to Mark at the road commission about them referring, using him and going through to this, the state? Mark, the road commission manager, no? I'm not Mark, Brad, I'm sorry.
Oh, Brad, okay.
And then get him involved and ask him which way to go about the state of Michigan, because he could help.
Okay,
He can support,
and I may, what I can do is point Mickey in that direction, because he was,
Okay.
he was here last meeting, and he has quite a bit of information, he's done a lot of kind of research on
He
it.
was quoting chapter and verse.
He's got a lot of information based on the fact that he lives over there. And he's been hoping or thinking that there could be a reduction in speed right there, it's still the village. And there's a lot of, it's a narrow part of the road. So, but yeah, I don't believe he's ever talked to Brad.
I mean, it'd be nice to get their support. We tried for years to get speed bumps, been asked, I don't know how many times, speed bumps out of Portage Point Drive up on the end.
Oh, right, when it gets real tiny, yeah,
And we get no,
okay,
just so you know, so it is an uphill battle, but maybe this will be a little bit different.
okay.
Like that would take an act of God out.
Out by the inn, that area, yeah.
Yeah.
We get asked about, cause and then, I don't know, the signs of help that we put up, I can't,
They have, I think they have, I just noticed more, cause
Something,
Yeah.
so, Michigan Public Act 33 allows local townships and road commissions to have more say in setting speed limits on county roads, including the ability to initiate requests to lower limits while still requiring speed studies to determine the 85th percentile speed. If you go down, it says rounding down, municipal leaders have the option to round the speed limit down to the nearest multiple of 5 if they cite safety concerns.
So does that say state roads or county roads?
County.
Yeah,
It's not state.
not in 22, yeah.
That's different, see, you're a different animal there.
so, but if we talk to the road
I
commission.
think so, I steer you in the right direction, I just don't know where to head, that would be a good starting point, I'll talk, when's Mickey coming back?
I think he's gone for the first week of April, but he should be back sometime. In a week.
Should be back the 7th or 8th, I believe.
So Brad is already, unless something changes, scheduled to speak at our next meeting.
Oh, good.
So
There you go.
it was a good time.
I spoke to him on the phone when he first got his, took that new position, and, he actually comes from Traverse City.
Right,
And he has a lot of experience, especially with, A Street and, the traffic that they had up there, and then he's worked on road,
Okay.
trails too,
Yeah.
with trails, so.
Hey, even if we could get it 5 miles, because there's a section that goes from the village and then it goes up to 45 miles an hour. I don't know exactly where, but it's before the end of the village. It turns to 45, then it goes to
55.
55.
And then down to 45.
And then down, yeah. So if we could really reduce it by even 5, that'd be better than nothing.
I live right on Main Street, and it
It's getting
says
fallen
it's
asphalt.
30, and they're
It's
going
not.
40.
Right, well, and the other thing that they mentioned about reducing the lanes, which is no cost to us, that 1 foot makes they do traffic studies, and they said by reducing it from whatever the 12-foot lane down to the 11-foot lane, it reduces the overall traffic by like 3 to 5 miles an hour. I'm like, even if we're not doing a trail for some reason, we should do that,
Absolutely
because
true, because that's great.
So a recommendation or a question. I understand that they're actually gonna begin redoing the road April 14th. Which means they're gonna have it paved out sometime in May. Is it possible to contact MDOT now to say, if you're repaving, when you restripe, can we
Make it
get
11.
narrower traffic lanes at that time?
yeah, April 14th.
Who's your connection with MDOT that you guys are using?
Heidi,
Heidi, why don't you, someone call her and ask that question, how we'd like to do that.
Well, and
So when they
we
change
want to
it,
make sure it's good with the village too.
Well, the village is actually, yeah, that's true, Wayne, do you think that'll be an issue?
So are you talking about they would actually move the cut sidewalk and curb?
No.
Or they're just gonna move the line?
They would make the
Line.
traffic lanes from 12 to
Skinny.
11. And at the same time, if they could take the parking lane stripe from, right now it's 10 down to 8, which is allowable.
So-
We'd have it visually there. It wouldn't say bike path or anything. But-
visually.
If they're gonna restripe, let's see if Heidi could get it. It seemed like
Would
something
that
they
be
could
something that-
adjust.
I guess that would be a.
I think they're starting on sidewalks first, so aren't they? Somebody said that.
But if that's happening, that mainly is for the village. And it would be,
Are they, I got a question, she said, are they gonna redo the sidewalks when they do the road?
The crosswalks,
Crosswalks only, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
And
right?
I don't know. exactly what this.
Supposedly they were gonna redo all the, wherever there's a crosswalk,
We talked about.
to make them ADA,
Compliant.
applicable.
But they're not doing anything with the sidewalks themselves, correct?
No.
You're talking about foot, I don't know exactly, but what you're talking about is they're just taking the curb out, putting in a
Right.
ramp at the intersections.
Right.
Which there's a bunch of those, I think.
I mean, they can't be doing any more than that based on the
Right.
timeframe.
No,
They're gonna be done June 27th. That's all the way to Norman Road.
they're starting here.
Yeah,
But I think if the village was, I think if it came from the village that you would like the lane to be an 11-foot driving lane, just
And 8-foot parking.
and reduce the traffic
Support
speed,
that.
and yeah, if you were supporting it, I think they would do it. Cause they seem to think it was not a big deal,
And
but
I would agree, just because it'll look narrower on the lines, people will slow down.
yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
human.
And like the speed signs that goes, you know, on Crescent Beach and the one on Porter's Point before my house. I noticed people slowing down, especially when that thing starts flashing at them, they do slow down, and then there's one just past me that's coming the other way. And I walk that, that's one of my little walk routes, and I see, you know, the thing flashes on 45 miles an hour, then all of a sudden you see the brake lights come on and they slow down, so. I think it helps some. I mean, I'm sure there's still people that, you know, are crazy and they're gonna go 50 no matter
Have you ever
what.
been,
So,
when they're doing construction, they put the cones right up on the line
yeah,
and it looks so much narrower?
skinnier, yes.
And it's not,
No,
Yep.
but people just automatically,
Yeah.
human
So-
nature, they slow down.
I'm a little confused here, because the center line is not gonna change.
No.
When they repave that, the double yellow line is gonna be right where it was.
Yes.
And then you're asking them to go 11 feet from the center line this way.
Yep.
And put a white line
Instead of 12.
instead of 12.
instead of 12. Okay, so now there's a white line at 11 feet. And then you're asking them to narrow the parking lane from the curb
No,
out 8 feet.
It's from the curb pan.
Okay, from the curb pan. So let's say 18 inches off the curb itself. And that'll be 8 feet. What is the public gonna do with this sudden 3-foot space that is not identified? They don't know what to do with it.
Is it 3 foot aside or
Okay.
3 foot total?
Forget narrowing the parking lane, because that was when we were trying to put in a marked bike lane, okay? So we'd only have one stripe,
I think you're only talking about one white stripe.
yeah. Forget the parking lane, that
Okay.
was,
Okay,
yeah.
if you forget the parking lane, I'm not confused.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I
No,
think
only
no,
one
I
of those
was-
things that
if you were to put a bike
I got
lane,
one of those things that.
if you were to put a bike lane in, you'd need to have 3 feet for the bike lane is kind of a minimum. And then probably at least another 1 foot for the doors to open
Yeah.
to the edge of the parking.
Yeah, but for the PennDOT, 3 foot won't cut it.
Okay,
They
won't-
required
won't
a
allow-
5
They
foot
won't
bike
allow a
lane.
3-foot bike lane.
4 foot is their minimum? or-
No, 8 foot,
Is it because of the road, we're on
8 feet?
M22?
No.
One-way bike lane?
because it's a state road.
Heidi said it could be a 5-foot bike lane. The reason we couldn't accommodate it with the wellness path is we were measuring from the sidewalk side of the curb. And you can't include the curb nor the gutter pan in that measurement. And eating up that 18 to 20 inches threw off our concept to have a bike lane that would be
Okay.
acceptable.
And that's,
So you ended up with just
Okay, yeah.
a
but
parking.
that's why I don't wanna be the guy out there with a measuring stick.
Can I ask one, so would there be any advantage to shifting the center line when they paint it to begin with?
I don't think that's allowed. I don't think that's allowed. The way the center lines, I heard, I think Rick asked that question of MDOT. You know, could we just kind of shift
If you
things?
shifted it all to one side, you gain all of it on the other
And-
side, but you
and-
can't do that?
However they determine where the center of the road is really set in stone.
And is there crowning of the road too? that makes
Oh,
sense?
yeah, right.
Because they want for the drainage, the center has to kind of stay in that center.
Yes.
I'm not a traffic.
No, but you're right, they do. That's when Brad was here, he was talking about they are going to improve the crown of the
I didn't
road,
know.
so the drainage. So, yeah, But then if you stuck the road off to one side, then it would totally be not draining properly, then you'd have cars going through big puddles.
So are you saying that the village should contact Heidi and see if they'll?
I don't know, Dave you think if the village was in support of that, they would probably look favorably upon that, because the part we're talking about in this.
That truly doesn't affect anything.
No, I mean, but it's a nice,
Visual.
it's a visual cue for people to slow down. And the lanes, you know, going west and east through town are 1 foot skinnier on each side of the double yellow line, which makes the parking thing wider. And potentially for bikers, I mean, you know.
Well, it makes the whole thing safer.
Makes the whole thing safer, and there's a little bit more room on either side of the road. I mean,
Wayne, you think the village council would be supportive of that?
I don't know, but I want to play devil's advocate on this for a second, because while it might be a visual cue to a person driving a car, it is physically a foot smaller for a person on a bicycle.
Oh, you're right, because when I ride through the village, I ride on the left edge of that line. Because I'm staying out of the parking lane, and I observe most riders coming through the village. Yeah, you've just taken a foot away from where the
Wouldn't you
riders
say
go.
right on the other side of the line then at that point? Cause
Yeah.
there's way more room.
That's
Yeah,
where
I would just go 3 feet, whatever, if there's a car park, I'll be 2 feet over from the car roughly,
You'd be
just out of the
way
door
more-
range.
Yeah.
Out of door range, but as far as possible from the car.
But do bear in mind, you were in on the planning of repainting this line and you
Yeah.
know that suddenly this is an 11-foot wide lane and
We'll put a billboard up at the end of it.
But
With all the instructions.
I'll agree with
Wayne.
Wayne, because when I ride and I see other riders, some ride inside, like you said, Mark, but usually most people are riding right on that white line or just off the left of it. And we'd be,
I don't know, I guess I'm thinking I would ride like, wherever that white line is, I'd be a foot or so inside.
Inside of it.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I was
Inside
wondering,
on the-
maybe I have
on
to
the
leave
lane
at
side?
noon.
Let me like inside it, you could be you have to be on the lane side,
I
or the
would,
traffic side,
yep,
like,
because you can't be in the parking side
here's
of that.
there's the double yellow line, here's the curb. And then they paint like a white line like this, I would be old square.
You'd be in the parking area?
Yeah, that's where I would ride.
That's nuts.
I can tell you visually, I see other riders when I ride.
Yeah. Well, it's up to
Everybody
you. I mean,
rides.
it's totally up to the village if you wanna do it.
You know, that's great when you're going down the highway or you're out riding the white line or on the little
Yeah.
extra paved area, but when you're not next to a parked car, I
Yep.
don't see you doing it on that side. Frankly, I don't see there being room for you to do it on that side, because I'm
Well,
pretty
both-
sure,
both-
by nature, when people park, they're gonna use that white line as opposed to the legal space that you're supposed to be between the curb and the car.
I think
I'll tell you
given,
that parallel
Here's the
parking
here's the
is
other
dying.
thing, it would be with the village endorsement is what they would do. And if you wanna slow the traffic down, that's a free way to do it.
Well, I don't want
I
to
have
use,
to leave at noon.
Oh, okay,
Are
yeah.
we going, are you going?
Yeah, let me, can I?
Touch
I'll
on
do-
anything?
Yeah, let me skip, there's really, I'm trying to think,
can I just help finish for Wayne? I don't think the village, after hearing Wayne's comment,
then don't do it.
and I caved up when Dave brought it up, because we were originally with Wellness Path looking at creating a bike lane. But Wayne raises a good point. I don't think you want to shift that line.
I don't do a lot of road bike riding, but I would never be on that side of the white line when I go down, when I head out to the point or whatever, Rath Road where I go for. But when I go through town, I would not be on that right-hand side of that white line going where there's parking area.
Just depends on how much space there is.
Right.
If it puts you right next to a car, no.
Right.
Like in the heart of the village, you know, where the hardware store is, then there's no room for that. On the other hand, out by the laundromat, I think it's wide enough that I could easily ride, not be in the roadway, but also not be super close to a parked
I
car.
think,
But if there happens to be a car park there,
yeah, well, I wanted to
you're
get,
gonna ride to avoid being doored, and you're gonna be out into that narrower traffic lane.
is this anything about the village master plan update? I was gonna ask you guys, cause I know it was in
Well-
process last meeting.
Yeah, Chris, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah, we're looking to have a draft of that master plan sometime in April, probably towards the latter end.
Of April, you said?
Yes.
Okay, all right, no, I mean, I'm just, because I think what we're trying to do is link our, the township and the village together on our master plans, so when you go in there, it shows us both looking to do stuff with trails and improve the
Right.
non-motorized, and that's just another grant deal, because when you apply and they're like, hey, here's some things we wanna see.
Gotta have
One of them is
master plan.
Cooperating, we're, the
Right.
village and the township are cooperating, we both are saying similar things about, we wanna see a non-motorized trail, blah, blah, blah. And
Yeah.
so if that's on there, awesome, as long as it's in progress, cause then I'll, that way I can, if I'm saying something on a, like to a potential grant, people like, yes.
So with the village master plan, their SWAT had very, you may correct me, Chris, but I think there was a very low request to have a non-motorized trail
Bike
or
trail?
whatever you call it through the village.
No, that's not
It
true.
was improved walking, pedestrian, crosswalks, those were the priorities, but
Those are non-motorized, right? Or-
Yeah, let me answer that, Susan.
Oh,
Go ahead.
There wasn't, we did a survey, we did the SWOT analysis, but I don't think we had drilled down deep enough for the village survey to ask a question, do you want a 10-foot wide multi-use path transitioning through the village? I think it was more, a little bit more general about sidewalk, how the importance of sidewalks, the importance of pedestrian facilities, redoing the existing sidewalks that exist now, widening them, making them more pedestrian friendly.
Right.
In trails, there's a question in there about trails, what they thought were important recreational facilities, and trails rated up real high. Now, was there a question about that trail transitioning specifically through the village? No, that wasn't in there. But but pedestrian facilities was highly ranked.
So let's say if somebody from a granting agency says something like, yes, we have this joint ad hoc committee with the township and the village, we're working together, we have a vision statement. And both our master plans reflect things about working together to improve healthy options for walking and biking and trails. I wouldn't be lying.
No, no.
Okay, good, all right.
Sorry,
No, and then Susan, before you leave.
Yeah.
The last thing, I mean, we're almost done, we're real close.
Okay. Well, just,
There's some things, there was assignments, trying to like, I guess, division of labor or whatever. And I had just a bunch of different things like,
right.
voice of the village, surveys, goes down. Wondering if you would be, you would work, like, if there's something you could help us doing work and communicating with the library and the schools.
So I would be, I see
Like,
the voice of the village?
no, there's something called a partnership, and that's like,
It's community activation number one. And
yeah,
two.
community activation
Oh,
one.
so it'd be, the library and.
Library and like the Onekama schools, talking to them, working
Sure.
with them, okay.
Be happy to do that.
Okay, and I mean, I had talked to Mickey earlier, cause when I sent out the thing about the meeting, he's like, hey, I'm in South Carolina, and text back and forth. And I know he is on this, and he's also an elected official. I asked him if he would be willing to be the voice
Of the village.
of the village and mainly that's like updating people, and he said, for sure, I'll do it, but let me know, what I need to do, because, I said, when you come back, we'll meet, we'll talk, whatever, but he was good with that. And then, we can just kind of move down the list, but I know you gotta go.
I do.
Yeah,
I'm
that's fine.
so sorry.
Yeah, No.
You give me the name and the assignment that.
Okay,
Just to, are they in the?
Yeah, and here's what I'll do, I'll read you
Okay, Susan Halloran,
Susan Halloran,
School and Library.
School and Library. And then Mickey. The village informant.
Village Informed.
Voice, I was voice of the village, I was trying to make something like something that made sense, I guess.
And if I have questions, so who do I reach out to?
Just
You?
email me, yeah, and I'll,
Okay, about,
and if I don't know, I'll find it and figure it, yeah. Cause we're, again, we're trying to build partnerships
Right.
with people, and the people from the library are gonna have questions about if the trail comes through, how will it affect our parking lot.
Right.
I mean, so we're trying to, it's almost like foreseeing into the
The
future,
future?
which is
Yeah.
hard to do.
Yeah.
But if we kind of like have people, and then the next thing is, as we move forward, I can say, Susan, I can email you, can you do this? And that way, then you can come back to the meeting and like, we'll have these things on there, and you can report out like, hey, I talked to the library and they were, you know,
I'll
like,
do that.
awesome. And then the
If I
school,
have
the
questions,
kids.
I'll contact you,
Okay.
and I might have to ask you how the rest of the meeting went or when.
Okay.
All right?
Supposed to be a survey for all these people to give anonymous feedback.
Which people?
Okay.
Mail
Okay.
postcard.
Sorry, the mail postcard was the business system. I put that on hold, so I didn't have anything to tell them or show them.
What was that?
We're going to develop a survey. So that these different people can go on and anonymously give feedback to somebody. That was supposed to be done after the October meeting.
But they've done surveys at the open house.
In October?
No, but, never.
That I don't, the October meeting.
Because I set one up at one
Oh.
point. Somebody asked me to set one up and then it never went out.
Do you have it currently ready to meet?
No, because there's no contact.
And we would just be surveying the,
Where you're talking about all the public. How does the public give feedback anonymously?
I can comment on that.
okay,
So the agenda for the October 23rd meeting was to have GFA present to the feasibility trails team what they had come up with. And the final agenda item for the trails team was to make a decision on how do we settle on the final plan? Should we, as one member of the audience suggested, just decide on what we think is the best plan, and when we do that, survey the public? Or should we somehow show the public all of the different options that are available so that we can get feedback from the public? That those agenda items were never acted on.
is that something we need to revisit then, or, Vic, do you think that's something that this,
Well,
Group.
as we sort of talked about this at the last meeting, it's the trails team that needs to make the decision on, which segments, if any segments at all, is it going to be the A or B and all that? Those are the things that I think Joe's discussed several times. We need to work down to what it is. At that meeting, the agenda item, which never was acted on, is, well, we should certainly find out what the public feels about it. But then there was the debate. It's so complicated. Do we show them all the segments, including with each segment in A and B? Oh, that's so overwhelming. Maybe we should just make our best decision. So this is a decision that your team needs to make.
okay,
How do you want to get input from the public? And so I think what Michelle is referencing is, what's the outcome? What's the next step? And she had the ability to do the survey. I have the ability to put it on the website, but you have to decide, what do you really want to ask them?
I mean, there are probably some segments where there's pretty good consensus on what the best option is, like not the lakeside between Portage Point and the village. The non-lake side may be preferred, given the property owner's concerns, or there may be a clear preference of the group once we've discussed it, or we may be divided, in which case it would be helpful to get input.
Well, and that's where,
Some sections may be just like, this is what we recommend, others are like, here are the two options.
that's where we need to define the whole project. Right now, it runs from Crescent Beach Road out to North Point, okay? Is that still the full concept or is there less of a concept? And then for Michelle to do a survey, I've got to tell you, I've had people say, I looked at the feasibility study, I'm not sure what you guys are gonna do. And it's confusing, and I think we
We need
and
to
Vic
boil
was
it-
reiterating, we need to come
boil
down
it
with
down.
a definitive, here's the whole project. And then I think Michelle can craft a
There may be
survey.
segments where we come to general agreement
Right.
that that's the best option. There may be segments where we don't agree and we maybe have two different opinions. And then we get input on which one.
And that would be like, so our next meeting in April, if Gordy Frazier is here or available, that would be, we could say here, this, whatever, like
We go segment by segment.
we're
and
gonna,
talk it
we're gonna,
and
we're gonna have to
So
go.
that then I
yes.
can put together. a
I
survey.
think you ought to
We're gonna
narrow.
have- We're gonna have to go by segment,
Okay.
and whether it's segment A, B, let's just for the sake of talking about it, call it segment A, B, and C. There, like you say, there could be a segment, say A, which is over here, it's kind of a no-brainer, it goes in this path, that, I mean, it's not, there's not a lot to.
Not a lot of options.
Not a lot of options, that's where it is.
I
You get
would
this-
like to see the next agenda. One item, let's hammer out and come up with a definitive plan. Something that we can present to the public. Michelle can do a very focused survey on, and then we know what we have going forward.
Yeah.
You know, is what we came up with, is the population in favor of it or not? Till then, it's just kind of a meandering
Well,
unknown.
and I think if we do break it into just, let's say just 3 segments. The more complicated section is where there's the most people and the pinch points and the sidewalks and stuff, that's just gonna take. That might be a more extensive, like, here are the 4 options.
That might be a section where you have more than one option.
Yeah.
Right, and there would be more questions on the survey that would address it.
Yeah.
Then after you leave the village, it's, it's from this point to this point, here are 2 options maybe, so that. I
Hey,
think
Matt.
that's a- Yeah,
Hey, I gotta log out. I gotta go.
yeah, okay,
So just, hey, thanks for a good meeting.
okay, appreciate your input and help.
Yeah.
And
don't
oh,
like
and Chris, hey, before you go, let me ask you this. Dang it.
Yeah,
Um,
I've talked to Rick.
Oh, you have, okay,
He
well,
talked to me about connectivity as
okay,
well.
okay,
That's
cool.
fine.
So you're okay with helping out on the surveys and stuff, Chris?
Yeah. I had a conversation with Rick this morning.
Fourth. Am I saying your last name right? Fourth?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought it was. So, okay, cool. Appreciate it. And that's
Okay.
something that you have a lot of experience in too, right? You.
It depends on it
I
depends
used to
on
teach
you know,
survey
what
research
aspect
design,
of
so
it.
if I can
Okay.
consult, let me
So,
know.
hey, listen, you guys have a great weekend.
All right, thank you. See you later, Chris.
No, I think so. So,
Yeah.
You're on it. For the survey.
This is,
Human surveys.
Yeah.
I sort of feel like, people who are, choose to be elected, trustees, village presidents, elected leaders, and people who choose to ask to be appointed to, boards, planning commissions, CBAs, Parks Commission. They have a strange gene in their body that makes them gravitate toward this stuff. But they are willing to make those decisions. And this project has been fraught with surveys centered around bad information. And that bad information is like a festering sore in our community. We're gonna take your land.
Yeah, we don't wanna do that, yeah.
At one meeting, somebody said, well, when's the condemnation of property gonna start taking place? That never happened, you know, nobody.
Well, there was the last meeting, there was a guy here, I'm not exactly sure who it was, but he asked about that. And I just said, listen, anything that happens has to be done in the road right away. I mean, we have some latitude about
Well,
bump outs,
and
but I said, cause then they're asking, well, where, do you know where those survey marks are? And I'm like, no, but that's why we.
because you're not a surveyor.
Right, and that's why I said, but that's why we have a grant, a planning grant, that we can determine these things, because I think. I didn't know people were thinking of condemnation, but, I mean, that's kind of way over the top, but I think. Knowing where the line is, and like around the blue slipper, where is that gonna be if they're gonna use, hey, we're putting in bricks, we wanna know where that is. We don't, the last thing we wanna do as these trail people is start annoying everybody with, we're coming over this way, we're gonna take part of your yard. What I keep saying, if anyone asks me, I'm like, hey, listen. If we can do this thing, everything that's contained in this is going to be within the road right away. It has to be. We can't take people's land, we can't go
Well,
over here and
and
take your
people at the
flower
same-
pots off the
People at the
curb.
same time, I understand, you know, the people out across from the Glenwood got all sick and nervous because, you know, they've lived with these free parking spaces
Oh, yeah.
for the last 50 years, 80 years. And now somebody is just making noises like that, like it might go away. Well, it was never yours to begin with, so,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean we wanna take them away, cause I don't think the lakeside's a good place for a trail out there, but, you know,
Well, like you said, it's a.
Again,
lesser value.
bad information and people hear it and they just go bonkers and
Right,
I'm kind of the opinion that I don't know that you're gonna get any good information out of a survey. And
well,
let me finish.
we have to do it though, I mean, there's no.
We have surveyed this thing to death.
Yeah.
We pretty much know what, and I think it is our responsibility to make the decisions. And that's why we have a group of people who are dedicated to doing that. This is an opportunity that Wayne's been here longer than anyone. Well, not anyone, but a lot of people.
I'm glad you said you.
Has an opportunity like this come before the township and the village in your memory?
No,
And I mean that from a financial standpoint.
no, that's all I'm answering. No, there's never been this type of money suggested that I know, or as an opportunity, an obligation, in no way. No way, shape or form, as far as the amount of money.
You know, we could say the sewers were, you know, we know what happened to the sewers the last 3 times it was proposed. And that was just even more money. I just think that, this is potentially transformative for the township and the village of Onekama. It is not the thriving commercial restaurant district that we may dream of, but that's not happening. And it's not happening within my lifetime. I think we have to look hard at this and do the job we were tasked to do.
To go back to your beginning statement, there have been surveys done on partial information, misinformation. I think the public, if we're gonna spend, I don't care whose money you call it, because it's still taxpayer money. If we're gonna allocate $7 to $9 million on a project, we need to have a project that the public wants. When I talked with Heidi multiple times last year, she said, the problem with your project is they chase the money before knowing what people wanted. You need to focus on what people want and what people will use. And this group needs to define, this is what the project is. And it can be in multiple phases, but this is what it is. And going through the village market, I'll agree, is probably the most complicated, and it might be, it's gonna be continue to ride in the road for a bike, and it'll transition to pedestrian there. But give people a good visual picture of, here's the total project, here's the total cost. Now, we can run a survey on before then, it's been bits and pieces, and it's been in disarray, and I think.
do we have costs? I mean, do we have cost estimates yet from it? I don't think we.
GFA has some
They have estimates. in it.
estimate ballparks, but that's what their estimate. They haven't done any engineering or, I mean, so. Yeah, the GFA, I can get you a copy of this. I think it's.
It's on the
online.
It's on the website.
Those are the higher view, I mean, they give you, if you go back to the appendix.
Yeah, I mean, really, but it also depends on where this, it's a TAP grant.
Yeah,
If it's a MDOT, if it's Department of Agriculture, if it's whatever
they all have different.
funding.
So so we've secured this one grant already that we can use with no matching funds to look into some of the things. And what I'm talking about, I'm not saying we resurvey everything. I don't know if you misunderstood me, but I'm just saying, if there are people, and I'm just using this for an example of the people that just bought the blue slipper. And they're like, hey, we've got all these plans and we're gonna have an outside bar and whatever. They're like, we want them to embrace the trail, right? Embracing the trail is good. We don't want them freaking out about the trail because they think the thing's gonna come over on
I
their.
think that's what we're clearly communicating.
Yes, and then when.
Being transparent.
And it's not,
We're only using right of way.
yes,
We're not planning to do any kind of eminent domain.
right, and the fact they don't, it's not, well, Matt Kiefer says this thing ain't coming over on our grass. I wanna be able to say, this guy who knows what he's doing from whatever Spicer or whatever these companies are that come out and do it, they measure it and they say, yep, it comes to right here and that's it. Cause I mean, I know you've been out measuring and stuff, but I'm not that confident in my measurement skills to know that I'm going to the right place. I want somebody that says, this is the actual spot of where it is. So I just think that's something, it's money well spent because we want the public to think it's a good idea and like it and not be annoyed the fact that they're like, well, I heard that it's gonna take up this part of our grass, or somebody down, down that way that's saying, hey, I used to park my car there all the time and now I can't park there. So they need to know, like you say, hey, it's definitely in the road right away and.
So I'm not against another survey, but I'll tell you, I think I have a good idea what people are wanting. To be honest with you.
Okay.
I mean, and I'm not here to speak for everybody,
No,
but I do know that speaking because I was voted in.
yeah,
I did have an opponent, so at least chosen over one other.
and people talk to you probably all the time.
And not only did I get voted in, this is to agree a little what Dave is saying.
Yeah.
Not only did I get voted in, I appointed Joe.
Yeah.
And Mickey and Susan.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, put a lot of thought into who I appointed. It may have all happened really fast in a meeting, but it didn't happen really fast when I was making a decision.
Right.
So there's some of that, and I'm not against getting more information through the survey, don't get me wrong.
I'm sorry to interrupt. The reason why I brought it up is because I was, if I understand correctly, you were assigning people to be communicators.
Yeah, and like
Face to
tasks,
face,
right,
yes, which is fine, face to face. Joe talks to people, I talk to people, Susan will talk to people. But there is a point at which, when a decision is being made, maybe they don't want to tell us to our face, hey, Michelle, I really just, whatever the comment is. That's why I brought up the survey. Sorry to create such a ruckus. It was on the agenda. It was supposed to be done. It wasn't done. I'm waiting for something, some reason.
and
to
that dates all the way back to
contact businesses.
October.
Right. I'm looking for a reason to contact the businesses, and I thought it would be nice if I had a survey that they could fill out anonymously or not. But it doesn't have to be a survey. I'm just saying, if we are
Yeah.
assigning people to do communications,
Yeah.
you have a face-to-face communication, which is important, but you can also have an anonymous communication, which is also important. That's all.
But to go to that whole point, you should give them something to have an opinion about.
And that's what, yeah, we're just talking about
Yeah.
doing segments.
So probably
narrowing it
last
down.
month, maybe a little more should have been done to come up with a proposal with maybe one option or two options or less or whatever. So
So what was your feeling that you said you had a feeling of what people would want.
I think most people would enjoy the bike trail, and if they wouldn't, I'm willing to make a decision for some of them that wouldn't, to say, well. Maybe your grandkids will, or your children will, or something like that, I might do that, I mean, that's politics, you're planning for the future. Right.
Okay.
And
I do know that-
Wayne was here, and I've talked to you about it, you know, when he watched the city fathers give away the rail right of ways. It would have been a wonderful trail. We had rail right of ways through this area.
Now the sewer way.
Far over in that area. And now,
And which you could be both.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but if,
So, and that's not the only thing with you then, White. And there are some politicians that I've seen be here for one specific purpose, they're on the board and they're gone after they finish it. I've seen it. It's happened. And it's happened too long ago for me to be feeding it anymore, but, you're gonna have to solve the parking thing, cause I have a hard time saying there's gonna be enough bicycles to come in and do business with the local businesses.
Yeah.
Cause I mean, if I were a business, I'd say, if you're gonna put that much money into bicycles, how about if we figure out how we get some more cars to stop? Because there's a lot more cars to work with than there are bicycles, you know, from economic point of view.
Agreed.
I'm not against this bike trail going through the alley because I've been on a single track. I can share with people walking their dogs and people driving their cars to make a delivery to the back door of their businesses. I can do that. And you know what, you might, if you don't want to lose your parking spaces, you might have to agree to that. Because
True.
it's not all about any one person.
Correct. That
It was
is
really
big
irritates me
truth.
some days, I'll be honest with you.
That is, you just spoke big truth there, Wayne.
So,
and Wayne's thing about the alleyways could accommodate cars and bicycles and walkers. For years, you might be familiar with this, Mark, down in Ann Arbor, going from Pinckney through all the way to Ann Arbor and beyond, there's a trail called the Border to Border Trail. Rode it all the time. Walkers, baby carriages, bikes going both ways. I believe the path was about 12 feet wide. It was great. The only advantage there was like what Chris said, it went through non-municipal areas.
Right, it's very appropriate for that kind of an open, wide.
Yeah,
open
Like an old
area.
railroad track. you
Yeah,
got.
exactly.
yeah, but
Okay.
Dave was the first one to bring it up to me. We were up at my market or whatever. He said something about a trail and I immediately looked like, great, can we start at the Glenwood and get up to the marsh?
Yeah.
Or can we start on Erkelrath Road or start in Langland Park and
Right.
get up to the marsh? I mean,
Yeah, but I wanna be able to address concern, like, you know, if. I don't know, again, I keep picking on the blue slipper, but whatever, just if they have a concern, that we can address it, you know what I mean, like, and we want people to embrace the trail, not be spreading. False information, like I heard from so-and-so that they're gonna take part of our sidewalk away, and it's like, dude, no, we're not. Here's the road right away, and I can tell you, here's where it is, I am not the guy measuring it, it's an actual person that knows what the hell they're doing. And they do it, and they say, this is where it is, and then they either can be happy with it or mad, and then we gotta deal with that, but I just don't wanna be the guy saying that's, you know. So,
so if I understand what Dave brought this to me, your idea was to get people from even the south side of the lake into town. That was part of the goal.
yeah,
the trail, I mean, the original concept that I put forward in the master plan was from Crescent Beach Road to North Point Park. That would be, you know, I think it's doable.
So one thing a survey could potentially help with is prioritization in terms of which segments are gonna be the most valued or should be done first.
Well, I mean, again, we're kind of, you know, we talked to MDOT about saying, you know, hey, we're thinking about doing this trail, we're thinking about doing it through the village. Could we put off the paving project so that we could do it all at the same time, so we're not just tearing up new asphalt? And they said, no, we've got our money to do this paving project. If we don't do it,
and they're coming in like 2 weeks.
if we don't do it now, we lose the money. So, gee, we should have thought of this 3 years ago. But,
Okay.
So
I
Dave,
just want to go.
question.
Yes,
So I know in the original concept, when it was still in parks, that it was, envisioned a total from Crescent Beach all the way out to North Point, but it was also recognized that the maximum was going to be 3 miles because that was going to be about X number of $1 million, and so therefore we have to be realistic, and so that's why I was disappointed because in the early discussions it became much less, and then we had to decide, okay, well, which segment should it be? So I mean, I'm a little bit worried with the concept of it being a $7 to $10 million project, which was mentioned earlier, or the full project from Crescent Beach Road all the way out to North Point. Those were discussions, and I just want to focus what my understanding is that the real decision of what this ends up being is up to this group. You guys do all the study, and it could be a very short one if that's what you decide to be. So it's whatever you decide. And then again, after you decide that, you'd certainly like to have public support.
Yeah. I agree. And like you say, it could be real short.
I would find it really easy to back any sort of trail that always goes one in the alley and people have nicer sidewalks to walk on. I could get behind that so hard it's not funny.
And the general public would really like that.
I mean,
But-
you can
but-
never lose with sidewalks.
but getting the money to pay for separate sidewalks is an issue we don't know how to solve.
I understand.
But they've done it. And Heidi said they're in a position where they reconsider that. I mean, they granted over $4 million to Superior Township for nothing but sidewalks. MDOT did it under a TAP grant. And Heidi said last year, if that's what the public really wanted, we would take it into consideration.
And that potentially could be woven in with our bike path.
Yep.
When you're speaking with Heidi and she's saying what the public wants, is it a survey? Did she say specifically how she wants to measure?
No,
that-
she didn't.
that-
All she said was MDOT gives strong preference to projects that have strong public support that will be used by the public. Those were her comments. And that was back in September, October.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah,
if she-
But she didn't say how you come up
Yeah.
getting that.
Okay, we're getting close. Joe, would you like, could I have you be one of your focuses, help with looking at the maintenance parts of these segments? Like best practices, preventative maintenance. If there's resurface repairing things, just kind of like, that would be a focal point for you, that you can kind of delve into a little bit more. And then report back to us, or the whole group of us in April. And I'm gonna, here's what I'll do, I'm gonna send out a reminder to everybody. And then also, as Vic is doing with Parks and Rec, I would just, I mean, if I'm I do it once in a while, I go and look, but I just want to try to make sure the stuff that's on the website is kind of current and looks right. So people don't go on there and look. So if people have a little bit of spare time here in the next week or whatever, log in, go in there and look around and make sure if you click on something, it goes to the right spot for the trails, and that there's a link that goes back and forth and it's working. I mean, I think everything's okay for now, but I just want to make sure it is. And I know, and Vic has been doing a great job updating those things. I just want to, I know how you like to do it for the Parks and Rec people, or committee or whatever. I'm thinking we should do something similar just to tie in the trails team stuff, so that doesn't get like outdated or wrong or whatever.
Yeah, let me speak to that for just a minute, okay?
Oh, okay, yeah, sure, for sure.
So because myself, Ed, and Cindy are the only ones that have web access, and my access is limited to the Parks and Rec area, we've, up to this point, you decided to keep it within Parks and Rec, which is fine. We want simplicity on the site, so it's really easy for people to use. And on the left navigation, there's blue rows at the top left, and we want to minimize those. Right now, there are two different items there. One is the survey and the other is trails. The reason that we have two items there is because at the prior meeting, it was suggested that we make sure that the GFA survey is prominently displayed. So that's why there's two rows there. What I would like is to have a single item on the left navigation that's trails. And when you go to that page, it is the one that looks very nice and neat. And
Okay.
Joe had said, okay, well, I'll do a PDF of what's out there right now so that if we make changes, we have historical. I can do that. What I really
Okay.
need is someone to look at the trails site and design it. I mean, right now, I put that mission statement in an area called other documents or something like that. Well, that's where I put the trail study and was criticized that you're hiding it. So I think someone needs to look at the trail site and just say, what do we want this to be? Because right now it's just a long litany of things, and I think it can be cleaned up. I'll do whatever your team asks me to do, but I'd like to get a single trails thing on the left, and then it
Yeah.
goes to whatever you want.
And I don't have her contact information or anything, but she was here at the Parks meeting. Her name's Sherry Miller. She was one of the people in the public. She has mentioned a couple times about, that she is a very tech savvy person and works in IT. And she's willing to help and volunteer and do some things. And I wrote her name down again, is that the Parks Direct, about she's willing to volunteer. She knows a lot about tech. She might be a person that we could talk to about more of a web design, thing like
Yeah,
that.
I don't know that tech is required. It's just, it's more design. It's like, what makes sense? What's no longer important? And let's just get rid of that. And like, to me right now, you've got that history up there. How did this thing start? That's a pretty nice explanation of how it started and where you got to where you are right now. Below that, you don't need anything else other than, what's your agenda meeting for next month's meeting? So anyway, I just think there's a lot of stuff out there that needs to be cleaned up. And if there's one way we could put it on a single site, that would be great. And if you want to delegate to someone who's not part of your team how you want to design that, I would be careful of that. I'd rather have someone on your team make the decision.
Okay.
This is what it looks like.
Okay. Right,
I don't understand the purpose of this tripod.
well, I'll get to that kind of, hang on to one second. Last thing, I was gonna ask Dave. Would you be willing to kind of work with the Little River Band Ottawa Indians? And
Yeah, I've already got Frank's contact information.
Cause that's another potential funding source.
Well, and I talked to Rick about this, and because of my involvement with the conservation district,
Okay,
there might be opportunities for us to dress up a trail along the way
okay. Perfect, so you already got contact.
with like some Japanese barberry and other good plants.
Okay.
Some really bright lights.
Autumn olive.
The slot machine.
Yes, as long as it's electronic gaming. Okay, I think we're, and the thing I just passed out is, it's just a draft of stuff, and it's just another, potential resource from the Manatee County Planning Department. They have people at the planning department that we can kind of enlist and help us with making, flyers for the community to see, like, here's what, this is like a trail related activities and benefits of having a trail, and they give you information. I was thinking of maybe having them come to a meeting. I don't know it's just something, I was thinking, would it be important maybe to include them? They're just another resource that we could potentially, this is just a very simple draft, doesn't have to be any which way.
Could some of this information go onto the website also?
It actually, yes, it totally could go on the
It'd be
website.
easier to read.
Yeah, and this is just something they came up with, yeah,
But
but that is just another local, I mean, so you have the Manistee County Community Foundation, they have the Minger Fund grants available, we're trying to get them, you know, as part of our, we want to be on their radar and let them know, hey, we're very interested in working with you, and if you have money and we can apply for it and use certain monies for matching funds, great. Manistee County Planning Department, similar thing, they have people working there that can do things like this for us, and they have, you know, it's actually paid staff we're part of their group that we could ask them to do stuff for us. So it doesn't have to, it doesn't have to look anything like this. If you don't like it, just throw it out.
I'll talk to you.
Okay.
Yeah, we contract with the county planners, but this would be outside the scope of their contract.
This,
Something like this.
you don't think they would,
They would certainly be willing to do it for us, but I don't think they'd do it as part of their, Jody Lynch serves as our ZA.
Okay.
And that's not in her ZA duties,
okay,
is designing brochures.
but they would attend our meetings and help us.
I think they'd come and attend a meeting.
That's what I was told, so.
And the village contracts with them too,
Yeah, they are usually careful to let us know
When you're getting over the line.
yes.
Maybe I haven't gotten the warning yet.
Well,
Okay.
you might want to lose that picture.
The dirt road.
Yeah,
Yeah, they just, this is just a prelim.
that's not the trailer, so.
No. But if you
But
look at it, it does say draft. Maybe they should have wrote it bigger. I don't know. But I just like,
Just quickly, I see they're chasing economic and attracting people.
yeah, they're trying to come up with.
So that type of trail, I believe probably attracts more people from a lot farther away than the trail we're doing. This trail needs to be for the residents.
Yeah.
Primarily for the residents, whether they be permanent or partial or seasonal, whatever.
I think I was given direction that we would use this to give to the businesses, but I don't think the businesses need this.
No.
This isn't really directed at them. I'm not sure. That's why I said I'm not.
This is
sure
like
who
something, I guess, for the,
this
I mean,
concept, but
I think this would be like something for the Visitors Bureau, maybe. Attracting people to the area.
this is talking about ecotourism and the economies that come with it.
Right.
Who is that directed to in our context?
I agree with Wayne. You need something that's focused on the local
Yeah,
population.
well, and again, that's just a draft of concepts of what they
Okay.
potentially can help us with.
Okay, but this is not the one that you wanted me to.
No. I'm just saying, I passed it out, just saying, hey.
Okay.
We've reached out to them, they're a helping agency, we could lean on them for some stuff. If we so choose, if we say, no, we don't want your stuff. we can do
I think the people using this trail have already been attracted here by something else,
Mhm.
which is good. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I would never travel here, right, this bike trail.
it. You need a four loops, yeah, right.
No, but I do travel to Crystal Mountain. And ride their trails, but there's a different type of trail.
Yeah.
I'm going to Calcasas and Traverse City for the Iceman and all that stuff. I mean, when the Iceman comes to town in Traverse, it's serious, very serious. Hardly get a room. It's like being in 4th of July. And I don't think we have that. But we could, because this trail could connect to the one that goes to the marsh someday.
Oh, up in Arcade, yeah.
Yep. And then from the marsh, you can get to the rest of the trails that are.
And also the connectivity. Crescent Beach is very comfortable for
Well, that's
cycling.
on that loop.
And that's also on the I-20, US 35 or something like
The
that.
35,
National bike
And you
route.
can go by the pier and stuff like that, so I'm.
Things like that.
Seems
can
that would
strengthen
be
the argument.
incorporated somewhere, somehow.
Yeah,
So I got connectivity so I can.
yes,
Build in. some-
connectivity, yep. Okay, and I think that basically takes us to the. Just continue to evaluate as much as we can local help. this, any kind of extra funds we can scrape together.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So last meeting, we were going to try to propose to the Onekama Township Board that you don't do all the work to see if they're interested. You ask them, how interested are you? Did they give you a number saying, hey, we'll put this much towards matching funds or whatever? Or did you get a number from them? Or did they just leave it to you to keep working on it? Because who the heck wants to have 14 meetings and then you said, oh, that's too much?
I had a discussion with Dave Meister 2 days ago. And, he said, do you want my 2 cents worth on the trails? And I got, yes.
Did you get 25 cents?
I would say, did you collect those 2 cents towards the
Uh,
kitty?
And, you know, he was, you know, relatively positive about it but then all of a sudden he said, cause I just don't know, you know, if you come back to this board, you know, asking for $400,000, if we're gonna be receptive to that. And I said, I've never heard that number at all. I said, no way have I ever heard anybody say, we're looking for a $400,000 match from the township. He said, well, what number have you heard? And I said, well, I've heard 200. He said, oh, well, that's not so bad. So I took that as a positive.
Yeah, because our last meeting, we weren't talking 200,000 either. We were talking 4 or more, and I don't know where number, it was a percentage of
We were just looking.
some sort of, it took the most optimistic estimate.
Yeah.
I think
What the
the
percentage
four or
was.
more, the 4 or more came out of the original, what's still on the website. The approximate budget was 3 million. The expected match was gonna be 20%,
And if
600,000. And that's where those numbers come from what was published and what still sits there.
And at that time, Rick Calamity didn't have a $400,000 grant from DNR. Which he,
The website.
Can
he
I add here?
He
Yeah, I
has
was
a
gonna
grant
say,
for
Rick
400,000.
can only put on what we give him, and we have not given him.
Correct.
So
So
the
my-
original
wait,
plan
wait.
is,
Wait,
Joe
my
mentioned-
question, wait, Dave made a statement, so you said Rick didn't have a 400,000 grant at that point.
Yeah.
I've never heard anything like that, and
you heard
My-
it here first.
my question to Matt is, we were supposed to come up with a defined project before anything else gets done. The biggest problem with this project is you went out and chased a grant that you got before you even had a feasibility study done. Your website even said the feasibility study should have been done first. So now I'm hearing, as a member of the committee,
Well, I don't think.
there are grants being chased, or grants, you said he didn't have a $400,000
He
grant.
has discussed with DNR
There's potential.
the potential of a $400,000 grant, and he has received positive feedback from the DNR for said grant. It is not in his wallet.
No, and that's,
Okay.
and I was, we were talking about that for a portion of this meeting too. About meeting with people, Manatee County, Community Foundation, trying to get, you know, like. Cause here's what we're looking at. We have a sort of a nebulous number of what we have from Gordy Frazier. And we're trying to kind of work with that number-ish. And is there potentially some spots we can kind of trim this down or whatever, the thing that goes up to Garden Park, maybe that is, maybe it isn't. However, then, as you're working through this, you find out, oh, there's other funding opportunities. Community Foundation is saying, okay, you know, keep us posted. There's another potential, I mean, it's not like they're saying, here's the bag of money, it's not like, that's not the case, but are they saying things like, hey, keep us posted on your progress, let us know, and this could be something potentially we could get behind. Okay, and so if we know that we're gonna need X amount of dollars to potentially do something like that, why wouldn't we be talking to people?
Now, I understand talking to people.
Right.
I go back to square one. I get accused of creating a problem when I asked questions last year because it was not a finished plan. I've been asking for 3 meetings now. Can we define the plan? Can we define the project? Then, once we have a plan settled, then it's appropriate to go talk to people and say, this is what it looks like. Right now, it's pie in the sky. You know, as much as I, as leading the citizen group, got accused of chasing the wellness path, this is the same thing. We don't have a defined project. How can you what are you presenting to people?
Well, I mean, you look at the Gordy Fraser feasibility study, there's some pretty defined things in there.
But it is a disarray of things.
It's a
And
series
you
of
talk
options.
about surveys on misinformation. I think presentations to people that are prospective grantors without a defined project is equally misleading. I think
Well, here-
the horse is way ahead
Joe,
of the
let me
cart.
ask you this, are you accusing me of misleading someone right now?
No,
Okay, I'm just making sure, because I've been talking to these potential grant people. I don't feel like I'm misleading them.
no.
There's a clear vision for a pedestrian cycle facility around Portage Lake.
Yeah.
Is what we're looking for funding for. Now, what that exactly looks like, I agree, it needs to be sorted out at some point.
Yes.
But the problem, and I'm not sure if you're understanding this. When there's potential funding sources out there that you say, hey, there's an agreement that both these units of government are working towards potentially having this trail go through and connecting some things from the south side of Lake through town and then out Portage Road. We're looking for grant funding. We have this feasibility study done that we paid for X amount of dollars, but potentially it may or may not happen based on the fact that we need to match this
I'll go
money.
back.
Well, can I finish for a minute?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. And they say something like, well, we're interested in participating and potentially offering you some grant money. Do I say, sorry, I don't have the exact thing to offer you right now, and so I'll get back to you in 3, 4, 5 months? Or do I say, sweet, I will meet with you, and if there's something I need to know, or if they say, would you like, if you have a vision, say some of these things that we need to have in order to get through the front gate of this funding thing, dang right, I'm gonna do it. I'm not misleading people. Here's what I'm doing. I'm out there beating the bushes, looking for some cash so we can have money to do this. And if we can, great. Again, raise my hand to say, I'm not making any decision that we're gonna start paving nothing until this group decides on something. Right? So there isn't any top secret thing going on where we're gonna start paving stuff.
Okay.
And we have a project, but the potential of getting some money to fund this thing, which is the linchpin in it, is kind of out there, and it's like, you gotta work with these people, and then this group over here says, oh, well, if you potentially have a grant from this entity, we can use that money as your lunch. And then you say, really? I didn't know that. And so then you say, well, we have this, if we get this grant, would you be willing to accept that as part of our match? And then they say, of course. So those are kind of things, I mean, you gotta, and there's no just not doing that, or you're
Okay,
gonna
Matt,
miss the boat.
I did not accuse you of misleading.
Okay,
I understand beating the bushes.
good.
I'm good at that, okay? What we've been charged with, and we've spent 3 months going nowhere, is defining the plan. That's all I'm asking for. I can get 100% behind certain aspects of this. I'll agree with Wayne. You give me biking through fixed up alleyways and a pedestrian walk, I'll beat the bushes with you for every penny out there. But why can't we come up with a plan? It's always, we're gonna define this, we're gonna sort it out, we're gonna create it. And I go from month to month and we don't do it. And
Well,
it seems like that should be the highest priority of this
That's next
group.
month's agenda, right?
It is.
They're gonna go
We-
through segment by segment,
Yes.
Gordy Fraser.
and I guess just to remind everybody, we didn't have the Gordy Fraser study until the last meeting.
I would say though, this is just a reflection. I know I'm supposed to remain neutral.
No,
but
you
it
can
would
say
be,
whatever
it
you
would be
want.
nice if the committee knew who you were beating the bush with.
Okay. And that's why I'm,
Like,
that's
if
why I'm
you're out
reporting
there,
out.
At least, yeah.
Just so should I do it more- Should I do it more
Well,
or wait till the meetings? I don't know.
I don't know how you run your meetings, but like in, you saw, you know, we run Parks and Rec, report back, you know, and it doesn't help that Rick has had a series of unfortunate events and that he is not here.
I agree.
Right, that's, it's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
For many reasons,
Yeah.
but maybe, you know, that might be the piece that's missing, it's, I know he's doing stuff.
Well,
But
and
we're not
I've been
hearing
trying
about
to
it,
attend
and so
any
maybe
meeting I
it's
can. and
Already
going-
granted, or it's already written.
No.
It would be nice just to know.
Yeah. So report out more often than just the meetings?
No,
Um,
no, I think at the meetings is fine, but I don't think we had a report last meeting that there was this new. I don't, he was talking with me about. The meetings he went to where he got more information.
And this is all, pretty much everything
Let's
has
just-
happened, I
let's
would
just
say within the
report back.
last.
So hopefully he'll be here next month and
Yeah.
we'll get on a better track of communication with
Right.
who's doing what. when,
And that's
where,
why,
why.
and that's why we're going through this and trying to assign people different duties to help manage that.
Yes.
And I think I got everybody assigned.
So is the expectation in terms of these assignments that everybody will report back at the next meeting?
Yeah.
Some sort of a one-page written report or
Oh,
something like that, or what?
Geez, it's usually just for, in the parks meetings, it's usually just a verbal, I mean, we used to, it's
Well-
not true, in parks. There was a time when we would do I would send, a one paragraph. not page, One paragraph report to,
Pick.
no, it was prior to big,
Oh.
saying, here's what we're doing in events, and that way people ahead of time could read kind of a preview. Now, I don't know with open meetings, I don't know about all that, but.
Well, and
You-
if
you
we
could
wanna
do
get
it-
it on the agenda,
We could do a recording of a paragraph of summary unless we want to discuss it at the meeting, but that doesn't,
Well-
make the meetings go long and these meetings are already going
Already
very
long.
long.
So here's what I could do, I could say, that's very long, I could say. Hey, like I do all the time, if you have anything for the agenda, blah, blah, and I could list all these things and say.
Yeah.
Here are the new tasks, if you have anything to put in there, let me know, and then we can just do discussion at the meeting.
I have found that works pretty well because you avoid a lot of sidetracking. We can try it.
So Matt, I've been at every one of these meetings, but not as an official member on any of them.
Right.
Been sitting in for Susan or
Somebody not around,
Nikki,
yeah.
so I don't tend to get myself assignments, but
Would you like one?
I'm feeling a little, like I'm not gonna be able to leave.
Okay.
And I'm not gonna look to push anybody else out of their assignments or anything like that, but I'm thinking like. I also think a meeting once a month, you're not gonna meet the next round of grants.
Well, and some of the funding is already, some of those funding sources are already out to 26.
So let's talk about how we can do the proposal thing, even if it's in partial work sessions before the next meeting or something. Oh, is there actually a map that you can actually read, or do you have to, is everything digital and you gotta get on your computer and do all this stuff back? and forth?
They have a full printed copy here.
Right there.
Oh,
Isn't that-
Okay, so can somebody have that so they can play with it, like put marks on it and stuff like that? Can we get another one that somebody could use as a worksheet to work on? And, you know, maybe you need to divide your committee into, hey, half of you are gonna work on a proposed idea, which is only, just come back to the other half. And maybe the other half works on where we're gonna get some money.
My name is Vanna.
No kidding.
So, yeah, do you have one at the village?
I don't think so.
It might be nice to have one at both
I
places.
was thinking, we, even, I don't even know if they have to be color. Color's nice, but.
Well,
I mean, Gordon
there's
Fraser could make us
Is
a
this,
few.
Joe, you're the, probably the best person.
the Gordy Fraser,
Is this the right one?
study,
Yeah.
that's 200 something pages
So-
long, has all this stuff on it. I
So
asked-
there is one in the feasibility
Right.
study.
That's what I'm saying,
But
you can print it out.
what we need is a big version of it
I'd like one that size for every section. So we can, so you can go take a ride, go look at it, say, oh yeah, that makes sense, this doesn't make sense. Like the other day I was driving by, I don't want to extend this meeting, but I was thinking, it'd be really neat to have where this culvert goes on the county property here, because we were talking about being out at the park on John Street. It'd be really nice if there's a little bridge that went across that creek as opposed to shoving people out to go around the guardrails.
Yeah.
Cause it gets thin there. It'd be kind of a neat thing.
Yeah, Matt, if you went to the feasibility study, page 11, and I think if you look at this real quick.
Well, I was making a note to check with 40 Fraser, maybe they have a ability to finish.
It would be as easy as taking the digital thing to jack line or something.
What happened, blow it up?
Yeah, like just do something that's.
Yeah.
Just for each section. Is it possible, let me ask this, is it possible that you could get this whole thing approved? With the public, but then pay for it with grants by section?
Yeah.
So that would be a good idea to have different sections of those.
And that's why we're talking about it, like, talking about it, this thing in sections, like A, B, and C, or whatever.
And
And
then,
maybe some of them have multiple choices on them, some of them are like.
and I haven't asked Dave yet, but I was going to. Do you have a feeling that there's gonna be any private funds showing up to this?
No,
I mean, I guess you get, the answer is no until you ask, I mean, you could.
Right, that doesn't mean there won't, but he doesn't have a feeling that there is right now.
Right,
it was never the intention.
right.
No, but
Well, I could tell you, having raised money for the park, stage and the pavilion, there's
Okay, we're
private
done.
money,
I'm gonna adjourn, yeah.
and Wayne's right.
And you're
There's
okay with
private
it?
money that could be attracted
Thank you, appreciate
into
it.
this.
And the
along
only
with
reason,
public.
the only reason I was bringing it up is, I know I'm in the struggle to what money to pay for what.
Finance?
So maybe if there were private funds, maybe that could be the money that was used in the.
Yeah.
Where
Or private
state or
funds,
federal funds are not available.
private
for-
funds can be used for your matching where you need it.
I'll send you the notes.
So,
Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Can I adjourn the meeting?
Yes.
Public
Yes.
comment? Okay, meeting adjourned.
I guess I'd say that I honestly don't believe that funding is the problem.
No, I don't.
The elephant in the room is finding a path